sit. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Herkimer Central School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. First on the list is public comment. Due to the current circumstances in our community regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the Board of Education meetings are being conducted virtually. Because of this, members of the public who wish to submit a comment for the Board of Education meeting had the opportunity to email prior to the meeting. With that being said, there was no public comment. Is there any public comment from the room? No public comment. Move on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion for that? Diane, get a second. Scott, all those in favor? 0. Board communications.
We received some additional information this afternoon by email that was not included in the original packet, which will be discussed tonight.
I'll make a motion to place all appropriate board communications on file with the district clerk.
Get a motion, and a second. Diane, all those in favor? 6-0. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. And I believe everybody was at the special meeting as well for Thursday, March 25th.
I won't.
Oh, you are. Okay, so let's do them separately. So this would be just for the regular meeting Wednesday, March 17th. Any motion? Diane, second. Michelle, all those in favor? 6-0. And for the special meeting Thursday, March 25th, any motion for that? Diane, second. Rich, all in favor? 5, 0, and 1. Okay. Next on the list is the Bernie bus presentation.
Bernie on
Yes, we saw him get in.
there's graphical group. Can you unmute yourself? Bernie representative, graph group. Can anybody hear me from the Bernie representative, craft group? Can you unmute your microphone?
Is our thing on you?
We can hear you.
They could be having a technical difficulty on their end.
Right. There's 2 people who are in the meeting. One's the craft group, and then there's a telephone number that I'd also called in. I'm assuming that's who those 2 people are, but we can't unmute them remotely. The user has to do it.
Do you want to continue with the business report
Sure.
until they come through?
So next on the list is business reports.
Oh, here we go. You got to unmute your microphone. That's the little red button. There you go.
Oh,
It's hard for the public to hear you guys, is what I'm hearing from the public.
I guess we can continue with the business reports.
So looking for acknowledgement of items A through H while we wait for craft group to get their technical difficulties.
Okay,
So I'm looking for acknowledgement, a motion to acknowledge items A through H on the business reports.
Diane, second. Scott, any discussion on any of those items? All those in favor? 6-0.
Looking for a motion on budget transfers over.
The motion on the budget transfers over. Rich, second. Rob? Any discussion on that item? All those in favor? 6-0.
Looking for a motion on the donation to a school resolution.
Diane, second.
Awesome.
Michelle? Any discussion on that item? This was for Stewart's Holiday Match Program. Miss McCutcheon was awarded $500 through that program for grant to fund a food bowl project. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor?
Yeah.
6-0.
Quickly, the account, that's the kind of grants that a lot of times nowadays require electronic transfer, and that's why you guys formed that account last month. This is the kind of stuff that money flows into that new account, just giving you a heads up as a lawyer. Looking for a motion on item K, standard workday resolution.
Get a motion on that? Diane, second. Rich? Any discussion on that item?
What is the change they're changing there? What's the explanation for that?
We have to do that every year as a part of the, it has to do with ERS and TRS, green credits and things like that. It's not,
That doesn't change the hours that.
it doesn't have anything, it's pro forma to define workdays. Yes.
Not changing when you're defining.
It's not changing them, it's how people decide, like service credit and those kinds of things. It's workday.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying.
yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? 6-0.
We want to start the operations budget before we try to let Kraft get in, or, you know what, do we have any idea what their tech problem is?
I can't tell from here. They keep joining and muting and unmuting themselves, but it's brief. Oh, no, I can't see the phone number.
They think we need to unmute them.
We don't have that ability.
Doesn't have anything to do with this thing?
Call you and put you on speakerphone.
I don't think that'll go, we can try it, the public hear it if,
That's better than nothing, I guess.
yeah.
If we put your phone by them.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them, somebody's called in on a cell phone too, and is listening on a cell phone. If they just unmute the cell phone.
We're gonna try my cell phone.
Whoever's on the cell, if they press *6, should unmute them on the cell phone too.
But that might not, is that Bernie?
Two people invited to the meeting that I'm not sure who they are. P. Dido is at Bernie Bus, but there's also Rocky.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Hey Rob, how are you?
Good. I gotta have to turn you up as loud as I can, and I'm gonna put you right next to the mic so that you can go out. We're gonna see how this works. Kind of like, feel like we're, old school. Building a better mousetrap today. How about you talk right now? We'll see if we can hear you.
Okay, testing.
Sounds good.
I think it's good.
Okay. Well, can you, Rob, can you see our video screen? Because we put together a short presentation for the board tonight.
So when you're looking, are you still in this? I don't see you anymore in the group. Are you still in the group? Are you still logged into the meeting?
Yeah, I'm getting back on. It must have booted me out.
Okay, so once you're in there, once you're in the group, there's a thing at the bottom that says present now. You want to click on that and you want to share that presentation. It should be, can you turn your mic all the way off?
Yeah, our mic is off on the video screen.
You gotta not only turn your sound down, you gotta turn your mic off.
Mute the volume.
Mute the volume on your computer. All the way down. That's a button up on the right hand side that has like a
Okay, any
line
better?
through it. Speaker with a line through it.
Any better?
That's
Yeah.
better. All right, so now once you're on there, now you want to go to present now. Do you see where it says present now? In the lower corner next to turn on captions, and there's three little dots. Right between there, it says present now.
Can you guys see it?
Not yet, because now once you press present now you'll get some options, and you want to share your tab with the presentation on it. You want to share where your slideshow is.
Gonna ask you what you want.
Just reduce that and go back into this. So share. Where? There it is. See if that works.
That's gonna ask you to email though. We're gonna do this part here. Gotta go in here. Gotta share this.
There you go.
Let's start.
Go up here.
There you go. We're in. Now, if you go to present now, it'll fill the screen up, I think.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Well, we apologize for the early technical difficulties, but we're finally here. Thank you very much, Rob, Regina, the entire board for having us tonight. I'll introduce everybody, then probably hand everything over to Rocky, and then Rocky can take the presentation. And we don't want to spend a lot of time walking through the presentation, but wanted to make sure that we Q&A. So I'll get started with in the conference room representing Bernie is Rocky Corgliano. He's our VP of Operations. Bob Kuipers, our Director of HR, and Paul Diuto, our Area General Manager. And again, thank you for having us, and we'll get started on the presentation. We'll dial through the presentation, and again, it should probably take maybe 7 to 10 minutes at the most, and then we'll throw it out or leave it for question and answers.
All right. So with that said, I'll get right into it. So Paul, if you just kind of hit the down arrow. Like I said, I'll go real fast. Right here. Yeah. Keep going. So we started off with your mission statement. One of the things that we try to do here at Bernie Bus is we try to keep all their school districts' mission statements out in front of us. We try to align our core values with all of our school districts. So you'll see here in a couple slides, I'll go over the core values that we have, that we keep in front of all of our employees. It's posted at all of our locations. This just kind of gives you a little bit of an overview on Bernie Bus. Established in 1947, right here in Rome. It gives you kind of an idea how we started operating 3 school buses, to where we're at now. In 2017, Bernie Bus was acquired by the Kraft School Bus Company, which is out headquartered in Westchester, PA. And you're going to see a slide on here that will show a lot of similarities between Bernie and Kraft as far as the family-owned business. It's generations upon generations that are still involved in the business. And you can see on here too, is that we're also in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and of course right here in central New York. So you'll see some of the comparisons. This is the core values that we keep up in front of our team here across Bernie. We talk about the commitment, which, commitment is the dedication, patient, discipline, leading by example. It's also our commitment to the school district, making sure that we're partnering with the district, being open and honest with the district, working together as a team. It's just not Bernie, it's Herkimer and Bernie Bus working together to make sure that we can get the kids to and from school in a timely manner. Respecting others, the trust part, integrity, compassion, consistency, and then making sure we provide top-notch customer service, safety, professionalism, and we're doing it with a positive attitude. Every day is challenging. We have challenges faced every day, but we want to make sure that we're in front of our employees, leading by example and trying to keep everybody upbeat, again, to achieve the same goals. This slide here gives you kind of an overview of the Kraft family. Again, the Kraft family was founded in 1942, and they're actually in their 78th year providing transportation. And what I thought one of the things that's really interesting and I think kind of cool is the 2 customers that started with the Krafts years ago are still customers with the Krafts currently. We operate over 2,000 routes daily. Again, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, and we're over 53 different school districts all across those locations. So you can see it's 2 generations, 3 generations, 4 generations, all family members in the business. Blake Kraft, who is the gentleman pictured right in the middle, he is the CEO of Bernie Kraft. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, nope, the other way. Nope, sorry. Driver recruiting and selection. And again, I'm not going to go through all these, but this just talks about our recruitment process. We do have a dedicated full-time hiring coordinator that has Herkimer responsibilities. We do enhanced screening. We do one-on-one behavioral interviews. We do a lot of online job postings. So Indeed, Craigslist, some radio campaigns. We've been doing some virtual job fairs. We're always looking at our driver wages. We're always looking at our sign-on bonuses. We do a lot of market analysis across the area to make sure that we're competitive. We might not be the highest. We're not the lowest. We want to make sure that we're competitive to retain drivers and retain talent, especially, sometimes with the driver shortages. We're active through social media, through Facebook. We're looking into some other different platforms, the LinkedIns, the YouTubes, the Instagrams. We're busy with putting out flyers. We do a lot of yard signs. We're looking into some different billboards, electronic billboards around some of the areas, that are high traffic volume.
Okay, so I guess I'll take into the nuts and bolts of what we do in the hiring process. And again, thank you all for having us here tonight. This slide represents what we do for both background checking drug testing. We use a company called Evolution Consulting to conduct our background checks for us. We do a social security verification, and we do use E-Verify as a method of doing that to make sure someone's legally able to work in the United States. We do a national criminal history search, which includes sex offender databases, criminal history, OFAC. Not sure how many people know what that is, the Office of Foreign Assets and Control, medical fraud and abuse databases. Obviously, we do a driver's license and abstract check on everybody, OIG, sanction screening, and then we get, once they're on board, and into the driver training or a fully licensed driver when they come on board, we submit their fingerprints through the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, and they do get an FBI investigation also. Those come through the education department, those reports back to the school district, and we get notified of that. I'm sure some of you know, but once someone becomes a school bus driver and is on the list at SED, if they get a moving traffic ticket or are charged with a crime, we get notified usually within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours if it's a weekend, but we get immediate notification that there's an issue there. Monitor fingerprinting is done a little different than drivers. That's all done through the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. On the drug testing side of the house, we use a company called FSS Solutions for a licensed driver. When they come on board, they get a DOT drug test on hire and immediate entry into the random drug pool, testing pool. A driver trainee gets a non-DOT drug test on hire, as do monitors, and the driver trainee gets a DOT drug test as soon as they obtain their permit, and they are put into the random drug pool from that point on. So that's kind of our background check process and what we do, bringing some on board right out of the gate.
So continuing on, so driver retention, as I said, we do random wage surveys. Again, this is looking at competitors in the area, making sure we are competitive with wages. We do formal refresher meetings with our drivers, safety meetings. Again, we talk about the core values. We have annual employee recognition events held in December, end of the year cookouts to celebrate the school year and celebrate, success stories. Biannual pay increases. So we do look at throughout the year if we are able to, increase pay for our drivers. And we also do some stay interviews at our terminal. So we'll talk to some of our drivers, see what's going well, what's not going well, and then talk about that as a team. Training program, driver training. We do have a lead trainer that manages the entire new CDL training process. So we do have lead trainers at our locations. We do have a nationally recognized offensive driver program. We do in-service monitoring training, which again is a developed safety program that's in here. And then we have a veteran driver training program, as well as we have a lot of tenured employees. I got Paul navigating, so we have another glitch here. Can you guys still hear the buzzing?
Yeah, so you're getting feedback because you have a mic on again. There you go.
Yeah, I probably just go back to we're not at the meeting anymore.
No, we're in. This has gotta, you gotta, this got this. I don't think stuff's serious, and I just think we can keep moving. Can you guys still hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. All right, so safety, always number one priority. Again, it's part of our core values. We talk about our drivers, driver trainers, examiners, which are 19A folks. We have a dedicated support staff. We do have specialized training, so as incidents do happen sometimes, we use them as a learning experience, as a teaching moment. We have annual evaluations, and then we do have safety officers. So we have safety officers that are embedded right into our operations. We're always focusing on preventing accidents, and all of our personnel are certified defensive driving instructors. And our safety personnel team all have extensive transportation and safety experience. And then the last slide really just talks about the partnership piece, and really making sure that our frontline workers, we know, are the key that makes the thing run smoothly here. Our drivers, mechanics, and staff, and it's a people business. So the relationship we have with the district, being able to go back and forth with open ends of communication, and again, working with the district to make sure we get the kids to and from school in a safe manner. So with that, that's kind of a lot in a little bit of time, but we will answer some questions if you guys have them. Wait 10 minutes even with the technical.
Any questions from anyone? Thank you guys for the presentation and reassuring us that you have a very robust hiring process and screening process and safety protocols and procedures, and makes us reassured in terms of our continued relationship with you moving forward. Hopefully, when we present the budget to the public, it's approved, and we continue that relationship for another 5 years. But certainly
No, we appreciate you guys giving us the time to talk, and the district has worked extremely well with us, and we're happy to continue to partner with everybody.
With that said, I guess we'll release you for the evening.
Okay, very good, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
You too.
I think that's the farthest phone's been for me for that long. And they know that's true. So I think what I was gonna do, I think I told you guys, I'm looking for a motion on the adoption of the operations budget. Once you move, I will go through the budget presentation and then answer questions, and then we can go through and do votes on the items.
Is there a motion? Michelle, second. Diane?
So let me take you through the 2021-22 operations budget presentation. Now I gotta do what I was telling them to do. It's easier to tell somebody how to do it than to actually do it. All right, share a tab. And I want that. And is it sharing? I think it is. And then go to present. So I should tell you that usually I'm standing for this. I don't know if any of you are Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids. Any of you seen it? No.
Yes.
So 70s movie, so I date myself. So there's a scene where Sundance, he's an excellent shot. He's a gunman, but he's auditioning to be a guard for for the, he's actually a crook, but he's auditioning to be a guard for this mining industry. So they're testing his shot, and then he tells the guy that he's auditioning for, he says, "Can I move? Can I move?" And he can't. He says, "No, just stand there." So he's shooting, and he misses everything. And then he says, "Well, go ahead, move." And then when he moves, he's hitting everything, and it's fun. So if I'm moving for these presentations, a little easier. But now I'm kind of been tied down to this computer screen by my technology guy, because he says I can't do it. Fine. So if I'm a little bit off my game tonight, that's why I'm not able to move.
You can
while I'm
paste
doing my
that here if you need to.
I can rock in my seat. So the 2021-22 budget presentation. Reopening budget 2021-22. District proposes a 0% tax increase, a levy limit override due to a negative levy limit caused by local share of debt service reduction anomaly. District proposes appropriating $570,000 to support the 2021-22 budget, and use federal funds for gap closing programs and reopening restrictions. The budget shows an increase of about 4.9%. The lion's share of that increase is in the program budget for programs that affect our students. Capital budget is basically flat, a little bit down. The administrative budget was flat for 2 years, up about 6%, which is about maybe about 10% of the total increase. State aid budget. This one I think needs some explanation. So when you look at the 2021 and 21-22 state aid, it looks and is we will receive about $1.9 million more in aid next year than we did this year. However, as you go through and look at where the aid is increasing, the aid is up about $1 million in foundation aid. The aid is up about $350,000 in building aid. It's up about $30,000 in transportation aid. It's up about $220,000 in BOCES aid, and then high cost aid is down a bit, and the rest of the aids are pretty much flat. The thing that occurred this year that made our aid go down is that there was a state aid deduct of about $500,000, and there won't be a state aid deduct next year. One thing I should also tell you is that last year's aid of $8.57 million from the state was actually already a reduction from the January aid. We had projected in most of we were projecting that aid in 2021 would have been about 8.8 million, and aid this year would have been about 9.1 million. So this is a little bit above what we would have projected in long-term planning, but it isn't as much as it would appear to be potentially because of the aid deduct of $500,000 and the reduction of last year's aid, or holding that aid flat from 1920 to 2021. So it is a large increase, but it's an increase on a stagnated aid from projections, just to give you a heads up. The maximum tax levy calculation, prior year's tax levy, the tax base growth factor, which is a measure of how much our tax base is growing, and it's growing at about 0.3% in this year. That's about 35,000, and last year's capital exclusions were about 878,000. And the allowable growth factor this year was 0.123 or 1.23%. So that means the cost of living, they say, was increased last year was about 1.2% or 1.3%. We're estimating our pilots to stay about flat at 35. Our pilots are really in question. We're going to have to really assess those next year as to what's really an active pilot and what's been returned to the roles and what might be off the pilot list completely. I think we'll take a look at that much more closely over the summer. The pandemic has certainly made those questions interesting. This year's capital exclusions are only 296,000, and that's what's causing the negative levy limit, that drop of exclusions from 878,000 to 296,000. So our levy limit this year is 9,010,000 roughly, which is about 4.67% under last year's levy limit. We went over this, I think, back in February. Questions? So if we go out at 0%, that's technically a levy limit override, because if the levy limit this year is actually lower than the prior year. And this happened in Central Valley, I think, twice in the last 2 years, and it's happened, or in the last 5 years, and it's happened in many districts across the state. And usually they do what we're doing, which is go out at a low levy or 0% increase in those years. If the budget doesn't get a supermajority for a levy limit override, then you would go to a contingent budget. Well, the contingent budget is the same levy as last year. So if the budget goes down, you would adopt the same levy as you had last year. So in a sense, if you go out at zero on a levy limit override, there's actually no consequence to the district financially in a negative budget goal. But there are some consequences in a contingent budget, in terms of what you can and can't do. You can't purchase equipment. So if you have equipment that's broken or equipment that you need, you have to either fix it, lease something instead. And that usually ends up being as much or more than replacing the equipment as a whole. We can't do the capital outlay projects because you have to have an approved budget in order to do that, which would mean that we would either choose to do that work unaided and lose the aid the following year, or delay that work to another year. We wouldn't approve the 5-year bus contract because that's a part of the budget itself. So if the budget doesn't pass, then we would have just a 1-year burning contract. We could go out next year, but we would only have that 1-year contract. What else? And you can't allow, you are not supposed to allow the public to use the community use of the facility is supposed to cease in a contingent budget. Because you're not supposed to do any expenditures that are outside of that which is for the education of kids, and they consider community use to be not for that purpose. Questions? Revenue projection, state aid 15.741 million, tax levy 9.451 million, other revenue about 652,000, total revenue about 25,844 with 570,000 in fund balance will yield a $26.414 million budget. On the revenue side, the limit is a negative 4.67%. And I want to stress that this is a levy limit override, so we do need a 60% supermajority in order to pass the budget. Capital component changes, debt service decreases by 40,000. Some other minor changes throughout, 14,000. Salary increases of about 20,000. Benefits increases about 25,000. Net change down about 14,000. This contains a capital outlay project, which is going to be at the elementary this year. It's going to be camera work, computer infrastructure, control work, just like we did this year at the high school. That work, if we do it this year and spend $100,000, the following year the state will give us $93,000 back. So it's a very small cost locally to the district to continue to keep our buildings operationally functional and equipped with the equipment that we need to keep the building safe and secure. Administrative budget, board decreases about 25,000. That's primarily due to the restructuring of the district clerk position. The business office is up about 27,000, and that's in anticipation of us needing some extra help there because of the board decrease, because we've shifted some responsibilities around. We haven't really made a decision yet. We'll talk about that later. Salary increases about 72,000. That includes the possibility for the board to, again, create some administrative position or part-time positions that could help with some of the stuff that's been lost over the last couple of years. We'll talk about in the next slide. Benefits up 23,000. BOCES is increased by 40,000. That's primarily the administrative budget, which has increased because our WADA share has increased, and that's primarily due to the fact that our population has gotten smaller, but other people have gotten smaller faster. So we're getting smaller, but we're getting smaller slower than other people in the BOCES, which is an interesting fact. That changed about 144,000. So administrative highlights. So one of the things that we haven't really committed to is how we're going to structure administration. One of the things that that I think that we talked about off and on at multiple budget builds in the last 3 years is developing the district administrative model that's sustainable. Also developing a transition plan to the next superintendent. I always joke that makes some people happy, I'm assuming, but we do want to plan for, at some point in the next 3 years, there'll be a new superintendent, and I think that the best way for a district to get to that point is to actually make an overt plan. So and also, what is the model that we can sustain long-term as a district administratively? And I think that a board workshop in May and June to discuss both those ideas about what's the transition look like and what's the operational model that's sustainable for the district is something that we should be working on now in the spring and in the summer. Questions? Major program component changes. Health insurance increases about 200,000, salary increases about $500,000. When you see that, that's not teacher salaries going up $500,000, that's new positions and salary increases together. So it's not that we're increasing everybody's salary by that much, it's that when you add in all the new positions in the budget, that's what the impact is. BOCE special ed up about 225,000. Those are high cost programs for students with pretty particular needs that we can't meet in district. Contractual increases of about 200,000. Social Security up 16,000. Workers' comp up 14,000. Teachers retirement up 40,000. The bulk of the contractual increase is transportation. One of the things that we looked at this year is that we have had an increased number of runs because of the decrease in the number of people on the run. So we have had more runs this year. And when I built the budget this year, initially I thought we would be able to return to normal, and I'm not convinced of that right now. I think we have to be prepared that we're going to have more runs still next year, particularly at the elementary level, for at least for a while. So we're anticipating that we will have less kids on the bus in September than we do right now. As you look at the guidelines that just rolled out, they really didn't make any changes at all to transportation. The transportation rule is still 1 kid per seat at this point, even though they've relaxed a lot of the other rules. So I think we definitely have to anticipate that we could have a similar run structure this year and not be able to go back to a more normal, at least in September. The district seeks approval of a 5-year contract with Bernie Bus in the amount of $5.77 million. That's for all 5 years. We performed a competitive RFP process in the winter of 2021, just a few months ago, and the Bernie proposal was about 1.25 million less than the next lowest bidder over 5 years. So we really do see this contract as important for 5 years as a sustainable bus company to provide transportation at a cost-effective, predictable manner for those 5 years. Highlights in the middle school programmatically. Continue agriculture and STEM programs, continuation of college art program, continuation of Project Leadway program with Frankfurt, continuation of VP Tech to the 7th cohort, continuation of interscholastic athletic programming, restore in-person physical education programming. So one of the things that you should be aware of too is that the regulations shifted there. It's now down to 6 feet. I'm still not, that might still mean we need more PE, because I'm not sure that we can get as many people into a PE classroom as we thought we might be able to. You might have had a class of 20. Can we still get 20 into a classroom next year? Perhaps if all the 12 and up have been vaccinated, perhaps, but the littler kids, we might need much more PE down, more sections of PE, smaller, but we definitely want to get PE back in the building. In-person music programming, again, this has been reduced to 6 feet, which makes it much more doable, but it might be smaller sections than you might be thinking. So everything hasn't changed to 3 feet at this point. And this is all we got to go on right now as we build our models for September as to how we're going to open. Can we bring music back? Yes. But can we have 1,000 people in the room? No. So some of these things, when we bring them back, they're going to cost us more, at least in the short term, because we're going to have more people to do it because we're going to have to smaller sections. We hope to return in-person driver ed. I'm not sure what that would look like. The advantage of driver ed education is it's usually older kids. Hopefully with vaccinations, there might be rules where we get the kids back in the car. Like that's, to me, one of those things that really hate not having kids get. I mean, having driver ed really reduces accidents. It makes them much safer drivers. It's really important. Having not had it for years is awful. Restoring an emotional support program position or 2, and inside the program, inside the school day, there's that's for sure. What can we do outside the school day? Because I know that one of the things that we've got to realize is that it's hard to get everything we need into a school day. When a kid's getting SEL or counseling in school, they're not in a classroom. So that can work a little bit around their schedules, but it's off. I don't want them to have to choose between the counseling and the class. We got to figure out a way to get them both. Restore extracurricular programming. We really didn't run a lot of it. We had extracurricular programs this year, but we didn't have our robust extracurricular programming. I think the drama productions will be back next year. They're going to look different. We're probably not going to have packed houses. We're going to have the different things, but I think they're going to be back. We're going to add 2 academic intervention teachers, at least probably for next year. And again, that's going to depend on where we're at with our gap closing. And we want to expand expand the community use of the facility. We're doing all this great work on the gym, on the fitness center. We were just starting to open the pool up more, and the pandemic came. But all that, I think that they can't go away. I think when you look around our community, we don't have a lot. We don't have a boys and girls club. We don't have a lot of those things. So we have to figure out a way to get those things to happen here in the school for our kids. It's not here otherwise. And all of our little kid programs, basketball programs, cheerleading, all those things depend on our facilities. We got to get them back up, and we got to get them back in use, and we got to get kids doing stuff again. Elementary school program highlights: restore after school swim instruction, restore in-person art. So art is going on right now, but it's being beamed into the classroom. We're gonna get the kids back in. What does that look like? Again, when you have smaller sections, which we're planning on having, is how many art teachers do we need to get that art back in there? Some of this might have to look a little bit different, but one of the primary things that we're supposed to be doing with the federal funds that are coming is making sure that we make it happen. We're supposed to get kids back in next year. Whatever we got to do, we're supposed to get kids back in school next year safely. Restore in-person music. Again, what do those classes look like? How far apart do they have to be? Restore in-person physical education, restore in-person pre-K. Continue and enhance summer programs. One of the things that we're looking at doing is really expanding the summer programming this summer, if we can get kids to come, and what those activities will look like. It's really, I think it's going to be important that we get kids back in to the habit of school, to wanting to be at school, learning, and all of those things that we counted on. Addition of one special education teacher to bolster resource room staffing and provide tier 3 interventions. We've been a little bit careful about pulling kids out to do interventions because we didn't want to mix cohorts. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that and provide the needed services for next year. And one of the things that we're definitely short on at the elementary school is tier 3 and low needs special ed services like resource room and direct consultant teaching. In order to alleviate having LTAs teach classes next year, we're going to add 2 elementary teachers, and that's with our enrollment based on current projections. But we may have more kids coming than we think because we believe that potentially some kindergartners were held back this year and not held home and they just didn't come. So we're going to look at those numbers, and so the 2 extra teachers just gets us to where we need to be with current numbers of registrants for pre-K and registrants for kindergarten. So if there's more than that, we may need more. And again, we'll have some federal funds that we can use to make sure that all of that will be taken care of. Special education, we still have increased enrollment in high needs programs. I talked to you guys about that in February. We increased by about 25% last year from about 40 to 50. We want to try to maximize use of in-district special education programs. It's not only usually less costly, it's also better for kids. Kids that are in school through 12th grade in our programs that we keep here are much more likely to graduate and be successful in school than the students that we don't have in our programs. So we want to continue our shift to least restrictive environment. Technology, we are going to maintain our one-to-one computing and continue our sequence of OC-aided multi-year purchases. In fact, one of the next 3 agenda items is approving the OC's multi-year purchases. We will receive about $4.8 million in federal funds over the next 3 years that have to be used for the following purposes: restoring in-person instruction, gap closing, meaning instructional gap closing, meaning that we're going to have to assess where kids are at and try to meet their needs. This might include things like hiring extra teachers, professional development for staff to meet their needs. It might also include more social emotional support. And I talked about earlier, how do we get social emotional support to our kids, not only within the school day, but potentially outside the school day in that 3 to 6 range? And how do we get kids to go to those, and how do we get families involved in that and want to be at that? Increase summer programming, and expanded school day program. And I know that Bob was talking about a 6 to 6 program that can be useful. And what other, it's hard within the school day to give somebody extra. Like if I pull a kid out of a classroom to try to give them extra, then you're losing the stuff that they were getting by being in the classroom. So extra means extra time outside of that time that we would ordinarily give instruction. So I think with the promise from the state that they may actually increase our aid, to the level that it should be at, which is around 12 million as opposed to where we're at right now, about 9.5 million in the next 3 years. And this federal aid, if we are very, very careful, we can build something that's sustainable with the federal funds, more of the federal funds up front. If there's more aid down the road, then it'll be sustainable into the future. So really the dance that we need to do is figure out what's really important for our kids. What are the programs that we need? What should Herkimer School look like? We really haven't had that question. For 8 years or 9 years that I've been here, how do I survive? Well, if what the state's telling us is true and the federal money that's coming is true, then we can have a whole different conversation. Now, I've been told by the state 6 times in the last 8 years, oh, we're gonna come through for you, and they've come through one time, and they say, well, we're gonna make up your foundation aid in the next 6 years, and here's your first payment. Well, they gave you the first payment, and no other payments came. Now they're saying we're gonna do it in 3 years. So I'll believe it maybe when the second payment comes. I don't believe it right now, but I think we can plan for it, we can think about it, and I think we have to be cognizant of what are the programs that we need for our kids, how do we make it best for our kids, and how are we respectful of the taxpayers in the long run. And I think all those questions are questions that we need to have a long conversation about over the next 4 to 5 months, and have a fiscal plan that makes sense for us and to our community as a whole. Students, families, staff, taxpayers, they're all important in this conversation. And it should have been a conversation we had more than 10 days to talk about before we adopted the budget, but that's not really the case here. But I feel like we can have an entirely different, robust conversation in this environment and think about things as what they could be, as opposed to Mr. Miller just saying this is what it has to be because this is what it is. That's a whole different, like, it's a mindset that takes me longer than 5 days or 10 days to get around. Like, what can be, what should be, and then what can we do and what can we sustain? But for the primary thing for me, for the federal money, for the state money, for the local money, for September 1, is that we get every kid in school back to as close to a normal day as we can, getting all the instruction that they're supposed to, and trying to meet their needs for what happened to them for the last 15 months. That's what I think is my primary goal at this point. Tax levy history, we've averaged probably around 2, 3, 4% over the last 2 to 3% over the last 10 years. It's been as high as 10. We were a little over 4 last year. 0 is like the lowest it's been, other than 16, 17, when the levy limit was, I think, 0.67%. It is a levy limit override, and this year I get 0%. Fund balance appropriation, we appropriated 1.1 million last year. This year we're only going to appropriate about 570,000. It's good, healthy district, might appropriate about 1% a year in fund balance, or not, somewhere in that range. Fund balance, we look like we might end the year above 4%. It's not really, the 4% cutoff we're only supposed to have a 4% fund balance. In this case, we'll be a little bit over. One of the things that I would say is that if I was more confident in the numbers, then I would move that money to the capital reserve and say, we were supposed to have about 2 million in that capital reserve at the end of this year, and we're only going to have around 500,000 probably. So I would say, if you insist that we get to 4%, then we could move it to that reserve. But once it's in a capital reserve, we lose that flexibility to use it. So again, I think I would like to be able to be in a spot where if the state doesn't come through, we're not going to just cut some of these things that we start, where we need to make up this ground over the next 3 to 4 years and run into a problem. So I think it's safe for this year to leave it there. If we get dinged on it, we can say we can make a plan, and we would make a plan to move to the capital reserve. But I think I want flexibility. This year we went from the state saying they were going to take away 20% of our aid, which would have been $2.6 million, to they restored a lot of stuff. So that's those kind of swings. How are we going to deal with that if we don't have some fund balance to cushion those things and not be nervous about it? Important dates: budget hearing May 5th, 2021. Budget vote May 18th, 2021, 12 to 8. That is 1 hour earlier, and 1 hour opens 1 hour earlier and closes 1 hour earlier, so we can hopefully get our vote done that night. We weren't actually done until the morning after last year, so I'd like to get the vote done on Tuesday night, 18th. Thank you to our kids. Any questions?
the vote, those were using the regular machines, the ballots that scan machines from board elections?
We are. So what we did actually this year too, and we made the mail-in votes scannable. So I believe we're gonna try to scan everything this year, including the mail-ins, which is the first. So at the end of the night, they'll all get open, verified, and then just scanned in as a separate set of ballots. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But the people that come in would feed them in like they do with the county, and probably Mr. Mississippi will be standing by the machine for 8 hours, like he usually does.
I think he goes to all the polling places, but he's always at mine too.
Yeah.
Have a lot of people requested mail-in votes.
Not as of yet. We'll have to send out mail-in votes to all the permanently disabled and people that, older folks that are on the list. We'll get those out to those people, but everybody else has to ask, and then they can get one. But a reason this year for getting one is I don't want to be out in public, so pretty much anybody can get one. So.
On the federal funds, do we have new reporting requirements for use of the funds, or, and also in those reports, are there any measures of success?
So they have only said basically general. I'll send you what I know, which is this is what you can spend the money on, but they haven't none of those details about how do you apply for the money, because what always happens in the federal grant process is even though there's an allocation for Herkimer, we still have to go through a lot of work to get the money. We have to write an explanation of every dollar that we spend, and then we have to do we have to file federal claim tracking forms, and then we have to have material backup for everything that we do and why we did it. So there'll be a application process and an electronic portal that I go into, and whoever else is working with me on it. We go in and once the school district figures out how they're going to spend the money, then we go in and write it all up and we submit it, and then they say, yes, you can do this, or no, you can, or you got to change this. And there's like a back and forth between the district and the federal agency reviewing it, and eventually usually get to an approval process or get it approved, and then the funds can be expended.
Do you have any anticipation of timeframe?
They say that I should have some stuff by the end of April for how to, I have to have a spending plan, I believe, by July 1.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have enough information yet to generate anything like that. But we'll definitely be talking about it in May. So, my general thought is you spend more up front. There's going to be a lot of reasons why we're going to spend more up front. I think there's probably going to be added transportation costs that I'm not even aware of yet that we're going to end up having to pay to get kids into school. Like, one of the things that's happened this year is we've had a staggered elementary day. And we could do that because all the days were shorter, so the high school day ended. But if I try to do a staggered elementary day and a full high school day, the high school doesn't get out to about 3:15. And that just plays havoc with athletics or kids miss classes. So I have a feeling transportation it's still going to be a bugaboo for us in terms of how we figure out how to make it work if we can't get more than 20 kids on a bus. So and that's going to, and any salve to that is going to be expensive. So I think we'll spend more money. We will, and we should spend more money this year, and then less money next year. So I mean, ideally, if you spent, let's say, $2.5 million next year, 1.5 million the following year, and then about 800,000 the last year, and the state actually comes through with $1 million more and $1 million more, then whatever we did this year, the state's money would fill in the following year, and then again the following year. So if you can step this off, if you can build a program, and the state comes through, we can build stuff that's actually long-term sustainable by stepping off the federal funds as the state funds come in. But as soon as the state funds don't come in, then I'm in a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is why if we keep a little bit extra fund balance this year, and next year the state doesn't come through with quite so much as what they thought, then I don't have to just drop everything in 1 year. I can say, all right, well then I can make some changes, and I've got a little bit of cushion here, and then I can slow down. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in terms of how we can build a sustainable financial model where the federal funds we use a lot up front and a little bit less and a little bit less, and then we fill that in with state funds if they actually come through, and then what I'm saying is if we do that right, we can pick the right choices for programs, the right choices for the tax levy over the next 3 years so that it's sustainable long-term for the district. Does that kind of make sense? But it's like a dance. You gotta be really careful with how you do it, or you'll end up in a spot where you've done too much up front and you can't sustain it. And then it's just a sad day, because all these great things that you were doing for 3 years, everybody got addicted to, you can't do anymore. And there's the good old days of like the reading first grant, and then it's gone, and you can't do that. So you gotta really think about it, really carefully about how you do it. And I think we can do that. I think we can build it, and I think, again, it's a conversation that's completely different than any conversation I've ever been involved in since I've been a superintendent, where you say, what can we do, what should we do, and what's sustainable, and those are the things that I think are really great conversations. I think we are possibly in a great spot where we can do a lot for all the stakeholders that we talk about. We just got to be really careful how we plan.
I'd be more confident now with that state money coming in.
on the air, on public, because I'm not as confident in the state money, but I'm pretty confident with the federal money. Like the federal money, it's already been allocated. So for 3 years, I'm good. We can do what we can do. But I'm a little bit more confident in the political environment for where we're at, and where the democratically controlled assembly and senate are at, and where the governor is at politically, that they've backed themselves kind of into a corner here where they're saying they're going to do this in a stronger way than they said in 2015. So potentially some stakeholder groups, if they don't come through, there could be a price for some of the politicians in this case, because they've made it such a priority. But I'm confident, but I'm also saying we need to save fund balance. We need to be careful. We need to make sure we're in a good spot, because what happens when they don't come through? Does that make sense? Like I'm a believer, but I'm also saying I'm Charlie Brown. I've been on my butt so many times from the state pulling the football out that I still say we need to keep enough in our coffers to soften that blow when they don't deliver, to make it so that we can step out of things slowly, gracefully, as opposed to like they would have done to us this year. It would not have been graceful this year if they took 2.6 million. Anything else? Okay. So we had a motion and a second on the adoption of the operations budget.
Any other discussion on budget? Those in favor? 6-0.
Looking for a motion on the property tax report card. I gotta turn off, I gotta stop sharing my screen probably, don't I? Let it escape. Stop share. Where is that? How about I think I did. Okay. Looking for a motion on the property tax report card. Did I get it?
Okay, motion on that. Rick, second. Diane, any discussion on that item? All those in favor? 6-0.
Looking for a motion on the multi-year purchase agreement resolution.
Motion on that. Scott, second. Diane, discussion on that? All those in favor? 6-0.
And the last item I had for you, and I won't bring it up on the screen again, because I don't think I need to, but it's just the calendar adjustments for the rest of the year. Just want to make sure you guys are aware of all the changes in the calendar that have occurred. And then we'll put out a memo shortly to staff as well. we have an extra snow day at this point, and unless the snow forecast for tomorrow is wrong and there's like a foot of snow, hopefully this is, I shouldn't even say, but hopefully that we won't have a snow day between now and May 28th. And then if we do not, then May 28th is a snow day give back day, which creates a 4-day weekend around Memorial Day. We gave June 18th an observance of Juneteenth back to the kids and the staff a while ago, but I just want to remind you that's a snow day give back or a holiday for staff and students. June 25th is a shortened session day and the last day of instruction for K-8, as well as a Regents Reading Day, 9-12. June 16th is the last day of instruction for grades 9 through 12 with Regents exams, June 17th, June 21, June 22nd, June 23rd, and June 24th. We're doing only a limited number of Regents exams this year. Let me see if I get it right. Algebra 1, Earth Science, Biology, and English. Because those are the required, I think, for graduation, because some schools do Earth Science and some do Biology. Does that sound right? And then they're doing a foreign language exam too, as well. So those are the 5 Regents days that we have this year. All the other Regencies were canceled, correct? Questions on the calendar adjustments? And that will put us in the right spot with the teachers unit in terms of the number of days in the year. All right. So the reopening school plan. There is no plan for you to review tonight. That's really not where we're at. I just wanted to talk to you about, I sent you guys the guidelines, and I attended a webinar today for about 30 minutes from the Department of Health about the reopening plan. And I just wanted to go through the process of what happens. And it's a really strange process, because most things in the state, somebody actually says this is approved or not approved. And with the reopening plans, if you recall, you guys never approved the plan. We talked about it, we had public meetings about it, and we posted it to our website, and we sent that link to SED, to the website, and to the Department of Health, and no one ever said the plan was approved. You guys, not actually even me, nobody. What was supposed to happen was really, if the plan had a problem, it was reviewed, they would have talked to you. But what they're saying essentially is that you need to follow the guidelines, and if you make changes to the plan, like some schools are just opening right now for the first time, like having kids in person, then you just have to make those changes in accordance with the guidelines, and then post those on that same website. So essentially, when you read through the guidelines, the primary change is that in classrooms, and only in classrooms, the distance can be reduced to 3 feet if you are either low, moderate, or substantial spread. We are substantial. If you're high, then 7-12 really isn't supposed to be an in-person unless you cohort. It says unless there's all kinds of mitigating language. But if we were a little bit higher than we are right now, if we went from substantial to high, they would say that they would recommend you think carefully about whether you have 7-12 school. And one of the reasons is that the elementary grades tend to be cohorted, meaning that you have a kid in the classroom all day long with the same kids. Well, the advantage that Herkimer has is that we are cohorted, I think, almost all the way up to 10th grade, except for with a few exceptions because of probably accelerated classes or something. So we could probably stay open even if we went to high all the way up to 10th grade, and maybe even we could justify it 11-12, depends, just because you got to have a conversation with DOH. So essentially, if we make the distance between our kids, instead of 6 feet in the classroom, 3 feet, as the CDC guidelines say, then we can bring every kid back 7-12. And we think we can get through all the transportation issues, but I'll let Zach and Mary answer those questions or talk a little bit about it after I kind of give you the rough overview. So really, the only change in our plan is going to be that we're going to allow kids to be only 3 feet apart instead of 6 feet. Now, some schools have a big problem with some of these things because they were feeding lunches in the classrooms instead of going to the cafeteria. But if you reduce the 3 feet, you can't feed them lunch in those classrooms. So, because they have to be 6 feet everywhere except for the classroom. But we don't have any of those issues because we don't feed kids lunch here per se. There are some kids that eat lunch here on a limited basis. It's very controlled, it's not masked. So the only change we would make to our plan essentially is that kids in the classroom would be 3 feet apart. All the other mitigation rules would be in effect, and we would pretty much be running the same operation. The only thing that would happen is kids would be in school 5 days a week instead of being a remote 2 and home 2 or home 3. That's kind of the general gist of it. So some schools are gonna have to do broad changes potentially for things. We're not gonna have to do that much. Really, we moved all the desks in and kind of ready to go, other than we've got to make sure that the community's aware of it and they're ready for this too, and that's going to require a meeting. So if you guys are okay with this, we'll let Zach and Mary talk about what they've done, where they're at, whether they're, and after that, then if you guys are okay with it, then on Monday, we'll do one of those public forums again where Mary, Zach, and I, and our public relations guy, probably Ryan, we're in a room and we do a little presentation about what the changes are so parents can get an idea about what to expect, and then take some questions about their concerns. And then on Monday, we'll make the changes to after that, we'll make the changes to our plan that reduce the distance in classrooms to 3 feet, our website, and then we'll, on the 25th, we would just bring the students back. That's kind of the simplistic overview. Doesn't tell you how much hundreds of hours these two had to do to get to the point where I get to just say, well, what we're doing is just moving the desks 3 feet apart. It's easy. So I don't know, Mr. Abbey, you want to take us through what's where we're at, and what the things that we've done, what things that are ahead, anything that concerned you?
So I like the simplistic view of, yes, just moving them closer 2 feet apart, and that is very much true. I think that all of the work that we've done all the way from last summer has actually led us to a point where we are in pretty good shape to make a shift from 6 feet to increasing the number of in-person days from 7 through 12 for those particular ages up to 5 days a week. One of the big reasons that becomes possible on a pretty quick turnaround for us is the way that we built our master schedule at the beginning of this school year. And for a variety of reasons. One, the main thing Mr. Miller just mentioned is the fact that lunch is not served here during the school day. That is a huge difference maker in the possibility of this happening. And the second one is the way in which we created our cohorts. So essentially each cohort has both an A and a B group. And that was done with, great optimism at that point that at some point in the year, we might be able to, join those two cohorts together, both A and B. Their schedules were created at the middle school level, grade 6th grade. They were created to have the same schedule in school tool, same period structure, but they were on opposite cohort days. So you've got your Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday. They were in the same classroom as that sister cohort. So now you can take those two cohorts and you can blend them together, and they can fit in the classroom under a 3 feet. Whereas under 6 feet, you could only fit half of that population. So really, it's kind of been designed all along in hopes that we'd be able to get to that point. And that's something that, so 6th grade has obviously been attending 5 days a week, but there is a change that we would like to make at 6th grade as well because of that distancing. Because right now, we have our 6th graders spread out throughout 8 classrooms, which is great that they're able to be here 5 days a week, but we're having to stream the classroom each period. So on one day, a particular group is getting that live instruction with the teacher in front of them, and the opposite day, they're sitting in an opposite classroom and receiving that instruction through the smart board, which has worked really well based on what we've had to deal with, but there's still just no comparison to that actual instruction. So we would like to also make that shift at 6th grade and go from those 8 cohorts down to the 4 cohorts. And then at 7th grade, we have been following very strict on the cohorts up to 4 periods a day, hour and 15 minutes. What we've really been missing at 7th grade is some of that special area instruction, some of that stuff outside of core academics in person. It's been all virtual. And that's something that we've really kind of felt that loss, and kids are feeling that loss. We're still not going to be able to offer PE or music in person because of the additional safety concerns with those areas. But art, home careers, STEM classes, health classes, those are something that we're also, with this possibility, would be able to offer a small amount of in-person instruction for. And that's true at 8th grade as well, to have that increase of those special area classes that are really like a nice creative release for our students that we've really felt that have been kind of lacking in the model that we've been working with. So the hope would be, as we're able to have that more consistent 5 days a week, that we can carve out some of those times and be able to add some of those back in. As Mr. Miller mentioned, also the transportation is a huge issue, barrier to get through. We've been working with Bernie recently, talking about, like, can we really do this? Can we fit all of our students on our bus runs? What kind of flexibility do we have to add bus runs, which is not something that we're going to be able to do. But we've been breaking down the data as far as how many of our students are eligible to ride all of the runs. We had in our office look at those that rode the bus one time of all of those that were eligible throughout the entire month of March. So we could kind of create these worst case scenarios. What if all of a sudden everyone that was eligible to ride the bus rode the bus on any given day? Could we get them to school? And then also broke it down even that much further to look at how many people do we have from the same household, because those are the only people that can still share a seat on the school bus, and to get us down to that number. And we've gotten to a point where we're pretty confident that we could get everybody here. We have 2 bus runs that are a little bit larger, and working with Bernie, talking to them, we feel pretty confident that on a worst case scenario, we might have a few extra kids on any given day. In the worst case, that we could drop the kids off and circle back around them, and they could be back to those kids within 5 minutes based on where those locations are. So even on a day where we had just a few too many on a particular bus run, we would be able to accommodate that. And the worst case scenario would be kids that are maybe just a couple minutes late. But that seems pretty minor, considering it would be going from 2 days of in-person instruction to 5 days of in-person. So we definitely feel pretty good about these possibilities.
In high school, at the high school level, our 9th and 10th grade is organized in cohorts very much like the middle school or the elementary school. And the schedule is designed 9 through 12 so that you can combine the days and have everybody in following the same schedule, but the Monday and Tuesday kids would be coming together. So we're able to do that. Like Zach said, this is how it was built. Right now, our students take 5 classes, an hour long each, in the hybrid model. And the average class size now with the 6-foot distance is, 8 to 12. I didn't actually do the math on that, but just because you can look at that data and see, it's about 8 to 12 now. When we combine them, the average class size really becomes somewhere between 15 and 18 at the high school level. So that's doable. There's some outliers, and one of my my largest functioning class would have 28 students. But this happens at the high school level because of electives and having just the one section of electives, and it comes together and it's that amount. And in talking through that with the teacher, we're able to work through that one. It's actually one of the classes that's in the STEM room, which is a huge space. So, and it's an anatomy and physiology class where the students are very, very motivated and very focused on the content. So that group of 28 will be fine. My largest cohort is really of 24 students. So, in those situations, those were placed in the largest classrooms too. So really, we had laid the groundwork for this to work out. The difference is the kids will be 3 feet apart instead of 6 feet apart. What happens too, sometimes if a class was to increase electives, we might only offer like one section of a class. So on a Monday, I have that class second period, and on Tuesday, I might not have that same class, it's something different. What we've been able to do is shift that to the 6th period. We have the 5 periods a day plus our 6th period resource, the 6th hour we call it. We can make some adjustments and create a learning opportunity within the day for those kids who get pushed to a 6th period class. They would have the opportunity for a study hall to get some of their work done while at school instead of taking it home with them. So when we can combine, a shift can be made and we'll be okay. Some of those adjustments come from incorporating our shared teachers because the high school schedule and the middle school schedule have to mesh, and we've been able to do that too. But in doing that, it also requires some of those shifts to the 6th period that I mentioned. Adjustments for like Project Lead the Way. We have students who take classes remotely through Frankfurt to earn college credit for their engineering. And those are in direct conflict with our classes. However, we are able to, the morning class can start a little bit early, the last class can stay a little bit later, and the senior class I can shift to the 6th period so that even those students will get a majority of their Project Lead the Way instruction, still virtually, and not miss Herkimer High School instruction. There's a little bit of transition there, like maybe a 10-minute overlap that, the Frankfurt teacher has been so flexible and our Herkimer teachers have been so flexible that I don't anticipate any problems there either. Another challenge that we have that helps shape our current schedule is the CTE schedule, because the vocational tech programs were adjusted so that 11th grade students get their instruction at BOCES on Mondays and Tuesdays. 12th grade students get their instruction at BOCES on Thursdays and Fridays. They're currently getting it here on Wednesdays. But now we're in session 5 days a week. That creates scheduling conflicts. But what we were able to do is make some shifts so that our CTE students can be here for those other 3 days and get the 1-hour period of instruction for those 3 days, along with extra support as needed. What I'm hoping to be able to do is have a kind of midday run to get home some of those students, if possible. But if it's not possible, they can stay here for an extra study hall or 2. It's not going to hurt them. But that would be a nice opportunity if we can do that. So our CTE students, instead of just coming on Wednesdays, will come for 3 days a week. They don't need to be here for the 5 hours straight. They don't have the classes to do that because they're taking that at BOCES. So one of the other shifts will be for virtual band lessons, because right now students get band lessons on their remote days, and now we won't have a remote day. But Mr. Gordon has been very ambitious and enthusiastic in trying to make sure that every student gets what they need for lessons. And we would be able to schedule them live, perhaps doing kind of a pull-out thing like we've done before, or the wraparound where, again, it's the 6th period and we work with the students live that way. So we lose the remote instruction, but we gain the live instruction there. This is good news because we're able to increase our student contact time with teachers directly from 2 hours a week to 5 hours a week. And I really believe it's the teachers that make the difference in terms of being academically successful. So one of the enhancements I see coming from this too is sort of a credit recovery opportunity. You hear me talking about making some shifts, so I can create some intervention classes as a result of those shifts, and I can add some 6th period kind of credit recovery type classes where the students who have been struggling remotely and didn't do well the first 2 semesters, where they would be able to get some extra support and maybe recoup some of that and maybe even do well enough to be able to pass the course this year. So the teachers are excited about that opportunity as well. Because remote learning, you try to reach them all, but it's hard. So having them here would allow us to reach them all. Some additional needs, we might need additional call monitors for increased traffic, but we've also explored technology solutions with Ryan in terms of just having kind of a tech management system for that. And we will see about piloting a program that uses technology to make that more managed. We will need LTAs for academic and behavioral support for our classes with high need students, but we have LTAs, we just have to shift where they're being used. Because of that 6th period enrichment being beefed up, I will need to create some lunch breaks for teachers within the day because I can't have them going from 9:30 to 2:30 without a lunch break. But working with LTAs and working with teacher schedules, that's something that we can accommodate as well. And I had mentioned, maybe a midday run for CTE students, and we'll see what our 6th period numbers are for busing. Once we crunch all the data, we might need more there, but we already have 2 buses at 2:30, and that might be all that we need. So our schedule is crafted. We've been talking about it with staff to get the feedback, like, is this gonna work? Do you have better ideas? And they've been great at coming back with suggestions to make this stronger. Have not been able to talk to students about a lot of these changes, what to expect. But the desks pretty much say it all. Your classroom's gonna look like this, and you'll be here every day. I mean, that's really, but you do need that mental preparation for that shift. Because, it's a change for them, especially for some of our 11th and 12th graders who have been taking advantage of the opportunity to work extra hours. They're gonna need to prepare to shift their work schedules, and so do their employers, because some of our local employers have come to rely on them for their 3 to 11 shifts or their alternate day shifts. Concerns, like just to anticipate, I do worry about sort of the pressure cooker effect, where we have like the end of year performance stress and the chemistry of bringing cohorts together. It's like the first day of school all over again, but in May or in April, the end of April. But we're preparing for that. We know that, and we will. We still believe that the contact with the teachers is what is the most important thing, and that getting our students here every day will help them finish the school year strong. So we will be ready if we're able to make the shift.
So when they come back, it's still 8:30 to 1:30, the same type classes?
Yeah.
Just, I guess.
But you talked about a 6th period.
The 6th period, we've had the 6th period since the beginning of the year, and we use that for our targeted interventions, for resource classes, for the students that need extra support. Same with our workday Wednesdays. We use that for the kids who, like the priority students, the ones who have resource classes and need IEP support. So we've had that 6th period there, and where there are conflicts, and I think I counted 5 classes, would shift to the 6th period. And then the academic interventions would be in that 6th period. So when I say 6th period, what I mean is 1:30 to 2:30, which we already have that structure in place. It would just now be used by more students.
So you talked about, allowing teachers to have lunch breaks, but what are you gonna do with students that are over here?
And it would be the same thing in that lunches get delivered to their classrooms at the end of 5th period, lunch to go. But wherever they are for their 6th period class, we would have the 6 feet apart when you're eating rule and follow that. So those students would be able to eat in the transition time before the 6th period instruction formally begins. Kind of a little downtime, but in the classroom and 6 feet apart.
So the students that are extended their day, how are they gonna be told that?
It would be through the scheduling, because, for example, I have a Spanish 2 class 2nd period in the Tuesday, Friday cohort with 8 students in it. So we could talk to those 8 students and explain, you're gonna have a study hall in this time now, and your Spanish class will be the 6th period.
All right, so you're relying on students to communicate with parents?
And we will make sure it gets communicated to you, yeah.
That's gonna be a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a manageable enough number that, I mean, parents swear will do the trick.
Because the same thing will be true for our resource students. They've always stayed for that time, but not necessarily 5 days a week. So yes, those clarifications will have to be shared.
So you're gonna increase students to extend their day too?
Mine will only be for resource instruction, because we've got some other things that are built in to the day to accommodate some of those other interventions. But our students that have resource instruction have been staying from that 1:30 to 2:30 time slot on their in-person days all year long. The difference would just be, now that they have 5 in-person days, they stay all 5 days. Yes, we will have to communicate that with very specific things.
So one of the things that happened was originally we were thinking April 19th, but we didn't get the guidelines until the Friday before the end of break, which didn't give us any time to really have a conversation as an administrative team until this Monday. And that's the hang up with trying to start Monday, is we just had no time to communicate to parents, to run a meeting and all of those things. So we weren't dragging our feet. We just want to make sure parents and students are informed about everything before we just say you're coming to school Monday. Does that make sense?
I have a silly question, but it won't be silly to most of the girls. Bathrooms, are they still gonna be only one student per bathroom? Are they gonna be allowed to do more?
We would manage bathroom access
Yeah.
at whatever comfort point we can have. I mean, 1 would be the goal, but I don't know how that will work with all of our students in our building.
That's what I was wondering, because you're doubling up the students.
We have plenty of bathrooms, so I think that we can manage it so that, it's 1 per bathroom instead of 1 at a time. That would be the shift that I would expect.
And they've gotten, like the people that are in the hallways doing that, have gotten quite good at the fact of, they look at the names, they'll pull 3 out of class at the same time. 1 will go here, 1 will go right down the stairs to the next one, and then they'll have the other one wait, and then they go in. So if we have to increase it because of the amount that are going at any particular time, I think that that's something we'll evaluate, but the goal would be to keep it at 1, as long as that can be managed.
Will the electives that are strictly online, like health, still only be remote?
Health and PE would still be asynchronous, all online.
Okay, so they would have the 8 to 1:30, and then still have to go home and do the remote
Yeah.
for those 2 classes.
Yes.
And what time, so how does that work? If they're half an hour at home, or whatever.
It works like it does now in that they have their weekly instructional plan of what they need to accomplish, and they do it independently. With the PE teachers being accessible through office hours that would be articulated. The difference now is that those office hours are on remote days where the kids are home and can access it. Their office hours will have to shift to outside of the 5-hour day so that the PE teachers can be accessed in that way. But I also envision, like, for example, in the CTE schedule, where we have a hard time kind of catching up with those students, that we'll be able to, like the PE teachers, will be able to meet with them. I can set a scheduled time to see those kids, to make sure they're on track, because they're a little harder to keep track of, and to incorporate maybe some like individualized activities for PE. Maybe they can go for a walk. I mean, the guidelines are still the same. You can't share equipment. You have to, well, it's not exactly the same. You have to be 6 feet apart, but I'd love to see a little physical activity taking place if we can manage that.
With the need for the additional staff, as you mentioned, moving LTAs around, you're still gonna have kids that are home for medical reasons, and then potentially a COVID outbreak sends kids remote. Will we have enough staff to still manage everybody here and remote?
That will certainly be a challenge that we can't predict, because I don't know, if we will be having as many quarantines as we had in the fall. Not that we've had a lot, I think we managed it pretty well. We are at now well, at least the high school population, 2% of our population are medically remote learners at this point. So in terms of like the teachers that teach them, they will still do the instruction as they have been getting it all year long, really, except to be 5 days a week instead of 2. We will lose the flexibilities of teachers who might have had a class on the Monday, but not had the class on the Tuesday for the coverage. But we would draw our LTAs to provide that coverage internally. And then, you know, perhaps we do have 2 board-approved substitutes that we could maybe develop more if we need it.
Some of that additional support is coming out of the 6th grade shift as well. Because right now there's 4 LTAs that are dedicated just to 6th grade and 6th grade alone, and that's all day, 8:30 to 1:30. So by shifting them, that gives us 4 additional bodies that can help support our students that need it in all grade levels throughout the day. And then in those cases when, you know, we do find ourselves needing additional coverage, they can be pulled from those duties. But yes, those are concerns that we have.
Playing devil's advocate, I'm pro bringing everybody back, but we've been one of the schools that's been open all year. And we've done a really good job at it. You guys have done an amazing job at it. Is there any concern that we're pushing hard for something that's 1 month? Like, stay with the status quo from the end of the year and get through it and then go full next year? I don't know if there's been thought about that. Like, we've got a month left. Are we pushing this hard when this much is work into 1 month of instruction? And if an outbreak happens in the community, it was all for nothing and everyone's at home anyways.
The beauty of our schedule is that it's flexible enough that if we need to pull back, we can. So I think having the increased instruction is worth it as long as our numbers are good and we're maintaining our cohorts. We're doing everything the same except for the 3 feet. So you can't predict how COVID will run its course or if it's done, but I think that we are flexible enough that if we need to respond and rethink it, we step back.
So one of the things that I'll say in terms of structurally, the way that this is built is that now instead of a student, so if a student is positive and at school right now, they might only impact 1 classroom of 10. By doing this, now they'll impact maybe a classroom of 20. So it's not as though we're going to put them in a mix of 100 kids so that child would, we're so cohorted that we really don't run that risk. I mean, truthfully, the largest cohort for the secondary has been sports. Like those are the places that are cross-sectional, large groups. Those are the places that will tend to have the largest cohorts. I mean, the football team is going to be 30 some odd kids. So there's a positive there, that's 30 kids. Those are probably the biggest spots. Still, the classroom sizes are going to be about 20. If a teacher or staff member is positive, that's where we have an entire grade level. But that entire grade level probably would have been impacted even in this model because they would have worked with all those kids over 2 days. So it would have been 80 kids. So like when we had a staff member exposure this year, it impacted an entire grade level, even though we're in this segmented system because they taught everybody over 2 days or they were in the room. So I don't see this as being vastly different in terms of how many people will be quarantined based on the positive in the school. Do you guys disagree with that assessment?
No, I agree 100%. I think that's why it's extremely important that we stick to all the other safety procedures that we're following and still not having some of those things that we want so much, but we're still not going to jump into, you know, full PE, full music instruction. We're still going to keep the kids cohorted. There's still not going to be a lot of transitions in the hallways, especially for middle school, no transitions in the hallways. And I think that those safety procedures are what will keep us in a really good state. Have done a really nice job at mitigating any spread. But yes, we definitely have those conversations to talk about, you know, where is the risk reward in this? And conversations with the teachers all year long is our students that struggle, we lose them on remote days and we just can't get them. And then they're here and we're constantly trying to play catch up with them. So like to have them 5 days a week, I think it just
and for me, like, getting people back into more routine habits as soon as possible is really important. We don't, I'd rather have my first day of school full-time be now and practice for a more broad first day of school with everything next September. Like, this is kind of a dry run at what September would look like. Does that make sense? And I think this is a time period when you got a senior in school every day that's struggling. This is where a teacher can be with them saying, hey, graduation, versus they're home sleeping for 6 hours, 2 days, 3 days a week. And like, it's important. I know it's only 2 months, and it's closer to 2 because we go right to June 25th. It's 2 months of time where you can make a difference between passing and failing for some of these kids on the edge, for seniors. We wouldn't do it if we didn't think it was worth it. Like, I'm not doing this just because, hey, I want to do it. I'm doing it because it's important for our kids to finish this year strong, to try to get as many kids to graduate as possible. Some of our risk kids, having them be here is really important. It's important for getting our mores and our routines back to normal, getting kids they should expect to wake up every morning and go to school. That's important for us. It's important to get back into that routine for kids. It's important for kids to be in school every day. Really, you can't, I can't even fathom that we're at where we're at, like in terms of how long schools have been closed, kids have been sitting home, and it's important that we do this if we can. In my opinion.
I thought the same thing as Rich. It seems like for such a short period of time, but I said the same thing to my daughter. At least now the finals coming up, things like that, maybe it'll help being in school every day, because sometimes she struggles with this class gets this information first, and then, you know.
And we could retreat back to the hybrid model if we had to. If something's going on, we know how to do this. We have these schedules already written. We could almost on a dime drop to retreat back. I think you're also, like, if we're gonna see a bounce out of vacation, that'll probably happen over the next 10 days, and hopefully it bounces back down by the Monday, or we'll know it's not, and then maybe we can reflect on, like, if we're if we go from substantive to high over the next 10 days because everybody came back from Florida or Myrtle Beach and they're spreading COVID like wildfire, then I guess we could probably make a change. Like, that's what we're gonna have to look at. We're gonna have to look at what the data is going on and make a sound decision. But we're entering the time period last year where the COVID started to drop off, if you recall, like late April, May. It's getting warmer, people outside. It should technically start to drop off. Will it? I don't know. They're not a scientist or an entomologist. They just play one on TV. But we can look at the data. We can work with the Department of Health. We can work with DOE or with the safety office, and we can see what's happening, and we'll make decisions. We're going to make decisions that are safe for the kids. But even in areas where there's high spread in the community, you go into the schools and it doesn't spread in the schools, especially when kids are masked and distanced. Now, 6 feet, 3 feet, but if they're not playing with each other and they are masked, it's shown in the schools when they test that there's not a lot of positives. Are there positive kids in school? Probably here and there, but it's not spreading among the kids like it was among adults. It's just not. So we work with DOH, we work with the safety office, we follow the CDC guidelines, and we try to give as much in-person instruction is my recommendation as we can. And I know it's 2 months, but it's an important 2 months in school. And I know Mr. Masso and Mr. Abbey would attest to that as well, that it's important to get them there in the to recover them. And then if they don't recover there, then we're going to try to have a robust summer program to recover them there. And then next year we'll be working to recover what they had delayed in their learning over the last 15 months. We got a lot of work to do. It's going to be a monumental task to try to recover from this for our kids. But I think these guys are up to the challenge. One of the things that I think you should know too is that staff is excited about getting kids back. I haven't talked to a single staff member that said I got concerns. I think the idea of having kids back every day is pretty exciting for staff. I know they're in this profession because they care about kids and they want the kids here. And if you have a lot of pushback from staff, I haven't had a single person tell me, don't do this. They all want them back. So I think we're going to openly communicate with families. We'll try to alleviate concerns. We're going to make sure that we let them know that not much is really changing, that we're going to still follow safety protocols, that we're just reducing the distance a little bit. We're still going to wear a face covering. We're still going to do everything right. We're going to clean everything. We're going to be very cognizant of if people are sick, they're going to stay home. We're going to, once there's vaccination sites for 16 up now, but those things are out there in the community. There's a lot of things going on that mean that this is a good idea. But I understand why we had a good run. Why are we gonna keep pushing? But I think we're pushing because it's what's good for kids.
Won't that adjustment in that proximate distance also help with quarantine issues?
Potentially. So I think in the last quarantine that that we worked on, it only impacted like one kid because of transportation. Because all the kids in that cohort were all on the same bus, and the bus is still the bus. And the 12-foot rule doesn't apply to the buses, at least not at this point. I might press a little bit later if we can have if the windows are open on the buses, as it's warmer. Is the airflow better there? And then maybe they won't force the 12 feet would only be probably 6 or 8 seats, and so it might be fewer kids. And if you're careful on the way you seat them, then you can even seat by class. That gets detailed for the driver though to enforce.
But that's gonna apply to classroom.
Right.
Which will help more.
It helps with quarantines as long as they're not also on the same bus.
Right.
Or the same football team, or the same this, because so the classroom is one spot, but then they web out just a little bit. You know, the more stuff that we offer later on, the more extracurriculars we have next year, the more mixing we'll have, the more. But hopefully, we're gonna eventually not be a pandemic anymore. Eventually, it's gonna be an endemic, and then we're gonna be able to relax a lot. We're just not there quite yet. So I guess I'm not looking for a vote, but I'm looking for just kind of a nod of the head that we can go forward with this and have our meeting on. I think we shouldn't. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll work with the safety officer and DOH about what changes actually to the physical plan I've got to make that's online. We'll make those changes, or at least we'll state what we're going to make those changes. We'll have the meeting on April 19th public, and we'll allow public comment, questions like we did last summer. I think that I would like to have a board member, if you're available, that'd be great at least. And then after that, we take their comments, and if there's things that we need to adjust because of the comments, or people, sometimes it's like you take their numbers and then they'll call them back and talk to them. A lot of times it's a personal call that you got to do to get through that. Then once we get through the meeting, then we make the changes for the plan for effective April 26th. These guys are going to be communicating with families and parents about what the schedules are, and then on Monday, everybody will be back.
Can you do the general adjustments like we did in the safety plan as far as we're gonna follow the current CDC guidelines?
Yes, as much as we can.
I guess leave it at that.
If we look at our plan already, we're really just going to go in and probably in places change 6 feet to 3 feet. That's probably about it.
Yeah.
That's
Even in those situations, maybe it's just referring to whatever guidelines are.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll go back and look, because otherwise it's the outdated links and plans. Yeah, I'm waiting for that from Adam as well right now. Some of those changes. Okay. Anything else on reopening? Staffing recommendations. Number 1, I'm looking for a motion.
Did we table that?
All of them?
Did we, or are we? I'd like to,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. You want to move table staffing?
Do a motion, do a second.
I'll say.
Diane, all those in favor? Sure.
Looking for a motion on CSE, CPSE recommendations?
I'll make a motion.
Diane and Scott. All those in favor? Sure.
Looking for a motion on non-public transportation requests?
Diane, do a second. Rich. All those in favor?
I guess the BOCES vote next.
This is for the BOCES vote, and we have to make a vote for, there's 3 seats up for election, and there's 3 running, so we really just have to make one vote, but for the BOCES budget, we get a motion for that.
There was one change to that.
Sure.
So technically we're supposed to meet on the 21st for this. So in order to satisfy the regs, what we do is we authorize the district clerk to sign the vote on April 21st on your behalf as a proxy. So we added a resolution in there. It says, resolve, I'm seeking formal approval, resolve that the Board of Education of the Herkimer Central School District does hereby authorize the district clerk to cast the one vote for the Herkimer Otsego BOCES administrative budget as presented for the 21st, 22nd school year, and cast 3 votes for the BOCES Board of Education members. So you're gonna approve this, and then you're gonna approve what you wanna vote on the administrative budget, and then she'll vote for you on your behalf on the 21st and satisfy the regs. Does that make sense?
So first we have to do the resolution to allow Susie to cast her votes. You get a motion for that? Michelle, second. Todd, all those in favor?
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. And next, now we can vote for the 3 members and the administrative budget. You get a motion for that? Diane, second. Rich? Discussion on that? All those in favor? Okay. President's update. I went to the BOCES executive meeting this last month, and it was great. The best part about it is they had a slideshow of all the students' artwork from around the districts. That was odd because I figured that McCutcheon would have something in there. But,
She has it everywhere.
yeah, right. You might have just missed a memo, a letter.
I might have missed the memo.
But it was very good. It was different because it was like a hybrid meeting as well. They had a lot of people that were virtual, and then they actually met over in auditorium at Remington School, and they had a lot of issues with their technical part. I felt bad they weren't able to get their presentation to work. So it is what it is. But they're talking about having some more over the summer and next year more in person, but also allowing everybody to be able to do it virtually too. So their big thing is to have our what is it, the spectacular or whatever they have every year in person next year, because Herkimer is actually the one that's going to be sponsoring that this next year. So that should be good. Anybody else have anything going on?
Is Christie still on? My question is, do we know, because we were made aware of streaming for basketball, do we know what other schools are doing and how is our status on it?
Well, we got Ryan here for streaming.
Right, so you could probably answer how we're doing or not.
How we're doing in comparison to other schools?
Are we able to stream our games?
Are we gonna be able to stream which games?
Football.
Football. I cannot answer that with certainty yet. I know that, I was literally today and later this week, I'm doing some more testing. Because of where our football stadium is, we don't have any dedicated internet out there. It means that we have to rely on unreliable internet service through hotspots.
So
what's that?
Can't you run fiber out there?
We can.
On the ground?
Yes, but not by Friday.
Well, it's not by Friday, it's by April 3rd.
Oh, next Wednesday. So the solution for that is if we're not able to stream them, if we find that the service isn't, reliable enough or strong enough, at the very least, Christy and I were working, we were talking about it today. At the very least, we'll have, games recorded and then immediately posted for people to see, as soon as the game is over. I can't tell you what I think is gonna be able to happen though, at least not reliably. Just that we're trying to make it available via a live stream, but I can't promise that it's going to be. And it's literally just due to technical limitations.
So the hotspots is what you're looking into?
that's our best tool for that at the moment, yeah.
Do we know what other schools are gonna do?
I can't answer that one.
I think like Little Falls is planning to stream. I don't know if Christy, are you still on the?
I'm still here, yep. So yeah, like Little Falls is planning to stream, but they already told me if it's raining, there might be difficulty with that because they don't have a press box to stay covered.
We don't have anything.
The plan for most schools is to stream if they have the capability. If it's raining, there might be difficulty with that because they don't have a press box to stay covered.
That's for Little Falls, right?
Little Falls.
I mean, I think everybody's gonna do the best that they can.
So if they can, just say most schools will be streaming if they have that capability.
Yeah, so, because with basketball, you put everything on our website, it'll get, give them the same thing.
We have, yeah, once we get their links, we'll get it out. We just don't have it yet. So, I mean, if you looked at I don't know, they can say they're gonna stream, but when you looked at certain schools, the streaming was like by some type of odd motion sensing camera that just shot, that you saw only like clips. The score was posted, but it wasn't like the level of streaming from facilities will probably be interesting. I think I said to the board before basketball, this is not gonna be like watching a Syracuse game with 4 cameras and every shot and slam dunks and rewinds. You know, the camera operator some of the time was this guy. So and I'm not an expert. So I'm like pressing. I think I went to timeout a couple of times and then got playing on my phone. I might have missed a couple of minutes because I'm busy with other things. But so the camera operator could be me. If it's me, it's probably not going to be great. But okay. So I think that you'll see that around this. Like some people are going to have really good systems, and others are going to have something less reliable. And there's not really a way I can do anything about that for the away games, and I can't even seem to do anything about it for my home games.
And I'm sure the opposing school districts will still continue to put the links on their athletic pages.
All districts. That was pretty good.
Was it? I thought there was one school in particular. I thought it was like chopping. Did you see? Like there was like it wasn't a.
And I'm sure the opposing school districts will still continue to put the links on their athletic pages.
I'll work with Christian tomorrow to see if I can find out if we can get those links. If it's not, you think it'll be the same one or not? The same page that we went to before?
Most schools posted it on their athletic page, and once we were aware of them, we also posted the other districts' links on our page.
Is there a speaker over here? Is that why we can't hear people when they're talking? So if I turn my speaker on, it'll go?
Most schools posted it on their athletic page, and once we were aware of them, we also posted the other districts' links on our page.
Okay.
I just want to say that I was happy to see that seniors had the life skills class. I thought that was nice. Hopefully they're running.
So, future meeting dates, the next one is May 5th for the budget hearing.
Yep.
Have our meeting on Monday, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, for the reopening.
Yes. What do you guys think? What's the best time for families to be able to get there? 6:30?
You mean from the opening?
Reopening meeting Monday? Want to do 6:30?
Meeting evaluation with Lewis.
I thought it was quite well. A lot of technology blitz here, but we're getting better every week with this. A lot of information this week, and I think that Mrs. Steele did a great job keeping us informed. Emails on some of the things were updated. So I don't think we missed anything. Overall, I think it was really good.
You don't have to apologize every time you upload, I'm sure it's just another fault.
You're right. I'm pretty active.
I move to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing promotion, retention of particular personnel. Board may take action in public session after the executive session ends and the board returns to public session.
Motion, can we get a second? Diane, all those in favor? 6-0.
What time?
What time long?
You wanna
8:02.
turn off the live stream?
Five, yeah.